Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to our Crushin Interview with Gary Stokan. If you don't know who this guy is, he is the guy that's the president of the Peach Bowl Incorporated, which runs the AFLAC Kickoff Bowl, not bowl, but kickoff game, and the Chick-fil-A Bowl, which we all are a part of and get ready for every year and excited about. Gary, let me start with this with you. How excited are you for Friday? I mean, I got a chance to talk to John Grant. He gets celebrated the MEAC SWAC and the Celebration Bowl. But when game time gets close, after all the work you're doing, how excited do you get when game time is almost here?
Well, Manuel, we're kind of like players. We're ready to tee it up, and we can't wait till Friday. Although we are going to celebrate Friday morning, a unique event. We're going to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell from Mercedes Benz Stadium virtually with the governor and the mayor, about 15 CEOs in Atlanta, Virgil Miller, the president of AFLAC, the Duck, Buzz the Bee, Louis the Cardinal. Everybody's going to be there, and we'll ring in the season with everybody down in Mercedes Benz Stadium. So this will be the second year we did it. Last year we were in New York and rang the bell up in New York, and this year we'll do it virtually from Mercedes Benz Stadium.
Oh, that's awesome. I know you're excited about that, to be able to do that. I'm trying to picture how that works, though. I mean, are y'all going to be on the field? Are you going to be in a press, in the owner's box? Where are you going to be at when this all goes down?
Yeah, we'll be above the first level, and the governor will actually push the old leather helmet, and that will signal the ringing of the bell. So it's going to be historic and quite fun, but it's a new way to start the season. And again, hopefully a tradition we can continue to keep in the Capital College Football, Atlanta, Georgia.
That's awesome. You talked about AFLAC. Everybody loves the Duck, and they become the sponsor this year. What was behind the scenes? What was all involved to bring AFLAC along for this kickoff game?
Well, it's ironic because we talked about being in New York last year, and Chick-fil-A had let me know that they're growing so fast. They have some other things they wanted to do. So they said, can we step away from the kickoff game? We'll continue as title sponsor of the bowl, which they're the longest title sponsor in bowl history. It'll be 27 years, I think, this year. They'll be the title sponsor of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And they said, if you can't find anybody, come back to us. But, while we were in New York, Virgil Miller, the president of AFLAC, was on the trip. And, as Michael Jordan, an old friend, said, you only miss the shots that you don't take. So I took a shot and told Virgil that with our community of interest of, children's healthcare of Atlanta and childhood cancer, they've given $168 million to form the AFLAC Cancer and Blood Disorders Center. And we've given $20 million, and now it's close to $23 million to start trials and find cures to eradicate childhood cancer. And we now have 12 trials with, I think, 37 kids in them. So we're making some progress there. But, I talked to Virgil about all of that being a community of interest. They're invested in college football. We're both Georgia companies. And, three calls and 3 weeks later, we had a title partner. So we're awfully proud to have AFLAC. We are calling this game a kickoff for a cause, and we'll raise somewhere between, $300,000 and $400,000 off of this game just for charity and for scholarships. So a unique way to use college football, but obviously very influential in helping people less fortunate in some cases, and in some cases, with childhood cancer. So it's going to be a great way to start the season with, 2 ACC schools playing a conference game, which is unique for us. Friday night, we never played before. We'll be in prime time on Friday night to kick off college football. And then 2 schools in Georgia Tech and Louisville that have 2 graduates, in Jeff Brom of Louisville in his first year, and Brent Key of Georgia Tech in his first year, both graduates of their respective schools. So they've been very, very active in the transfer portal. And I think both longevity of their career is going to be very, very successful. So we'll see what happens when toe meets leather on Friday night.
You talked about a little bit about you talked about what you do donation-wise, but why? What else have you does this mean to this community of Atlanta? A game like this, an event like this, what does it mean to host this game? Because it is a big game. It is a kickoff game. Mercedes is going to be full. It's got a lot of attention. But for the city of Atlanta and the surrounding areas, what does this game mean to it?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One, if you look at last year as an example, we, between our two Chick-fil-A kickoff games at the time and our Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, we did over $90 million of economic impact, which translates down to about $6.3 million of tax money that went back into the city coffers based on the economic impact of bringing everybody into town. And then with 23.5 million viewers for just the Georgia-Ohio State Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl CFP semifinal game, that was out of all the cable TV history broadcasts, that was in the top 20 broadcasts of all time in cable TV history. So, viewership wise, we're exposing Atlanta. And then from a economic impact and tax perspective, our two games are probably two of the top 5 conventions on an annual basis in Atlanta. And then when you talk about charity, we give each school $50,000 in an endowed scholarship. It's our John Lewis Legacy of Courage Scholarship that we now have at 34 universities throughout the country. Teams that have played in our bowl game and our kickoff game, and all that endowed money, there's over $9 million of endowed money now, is earmarked for Title I kids in Atlanta. So all the kids in APS, some of these kids have never had anybody in their family go to college. Those scholarship monies are earmarked for them if they apply to one of those 34 universities. So again, from a viewership standpoint, we're ringing the bell on all 3 levels to benefit Atlanta.
It's awesome to hear because we see the game, we know about the economic impact, but to be able to see what it also does for the community is a great thing. So let's talk about you a little bit real quick, your passion for this, because you've been doing it we've heard the name Gary Stokan for a while. I want to make sure I say that Stokan right. I want to make sure I say it right. What keeps your passion going to be over this? Because they are big games. They're world renowned and things of that nature. But what keeps that fire burning inside of you to keep doing this?
Well, I'm very blessed. To have a job that you're passionate about. I was able to find my passion, 44 years ago to get into sports. I started in coaching and then moved into the business world with Adidas, and then Converse, and then owned my own sports marketing company, and then went back to work for Adidas. And then, 26 years ago, I served as a volunteer while living in Atlanta all those years for the Bowl and the Atlanta Sports Council. And in 1998, the board came to me and said, "Hey, how would you like to run both of these?" And it was a good time for me to get off the road. I had spent a lot of time on the road with Adidas and Converse. And so, so that was 26 years ago. And it's been a great run. I've built a lot of great relationships, and doing it in a city like Atlanta where people really get it. The corporations get it. They support us. The volunteers really enjoy Southern hospitality, and they're very influential on the success we've had. I've had a great staff for a long, long time, the best in the business. And then, to have the ingredients that we have in Atlanta of the best airport in the world, 16,000 hotel rooms downtown, walking distance to state-of-the-art, fantastic facilities. You put all that together with the corporate support that we have, and it's the recipe for success in sports. And so I've just kind of been a conductor of that more than anything else. So very, very blessed to be a part of Atlanta for the last, I guess it's 44 years now I've lived here.
Wow. So let's talk about it. You mentioned a little bit earlier, two brand new coaches coming on the scene. Well, they coached before, but for these teams, they've come home after like you said, Louisville head coach Jeff Brom. He's back. I feel old because I remember these guys playing, but it's just
Yeah.
it's Jeff Brom, and we got Georgia Tech, Brent Key coming in. And what can we expect from these teams? I know you do. You got that sports background. What can you expect? You talked about.
I think Louisville would like to throw it around a little bit. Jeff's brought his a lot of people from Purdue. He had some transfers from Purdue, one of which is his quarterback. So he's got a quarterback that's played in the Big Ten, and as you know, you have to have a quarterback nowadays in college football to be successful. So
absolutely,
Plummer's a good quarterback that they have, and then Jeff's very offensive minded. He was a quarterback, very successful at Louisville. I think on the Georgia Tech side, Brent's an offensive lineman, so they want to run the ball, control it. He's worked for George O'Leary and Nick Saban, both who primarily, believe in running the ball, not turning it over, playing good defense. So I think, we're in for an exciting game. It'll be a lot of new players, certainly from the transfer portal, and both have been successful coaches, and I think they're going to be very successful, careers at both Georgia Tech and Louisville. So we're kind of the start of their career here at their alma maters. I know we got started with Kirby Smart in 2016 in the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Game. His first game at his alma mater was against North Carolina. And, with Clemson, with Dabo Swinney, and with Nick Saban at Alabama, both have used these kickoff game format, these first games of the year, to really become successful. And, hopefully both Georgia Tech and Louisville will do the same.
You stole my thunder a little bit about to ask when teams play this game, what have you seen it mean for them as far as that season? Because, you get to play. You don't play, as they say, warm-up games. You playing a very ACC opponent to start the season. What have you seen? You just talked about some of the great coaches that have been here, what this game could be a catalyst for.
Yeah, and talking to coaches, they really like playing in a big-time game because in the off-season workouts by the kids take a whole new intensity level because ultimately kids want to play on the biggest stage against the best competition. Right. And then the second thing is most coaches will tell you they learn more about their team and their team improves more from week 1 to week 2, primarily because instead of hitting against each other in practice all summer long, and they know each other's plays, obviously, you're seeing new competition and you're competing maybe against an all-conference player on the other side, maybe a future NFL player. Yeah. So individually, the coaches can coach you up week 1 to week 2 because they got live film now. And then secondly, they can collectively as a team coach you up because you'll play all 3 facets of the game on offense, defense, and special teams with live film now. And they can work on what they need to improve on to move forward. So, we've learned a lot about, doing this since 2008. And that's the report we get from most of the coaches. And at the end of the day, everybody wins in this format. The ADs win because they get a great payout. The presidents win because we endow 2 scholarships at their universities. The fans win because they get an opportunity to come to a great game or at least watch it on TV. We'll be on primetime, 7:30 on ESPN on Friday night. And then the media wins because they get a chance to see, good competition rather than a game that's, maybe a directional score where it's 35-0 at halftime.
Right.
So everybody gets a win. The conference will get a win because it's a conference game, which is unusual for us to have. Last year we did have Georgia Tech Clemson, but normally we don't have a conference game. So that'll be unique this year as well.
2 more questions I got for you, Gary. Let's start with this one. The fan bases, how excited are they? We got Georgia Tech. We at home. They say they at home. They got the backyard, the game. But Louisville fans, they're ready to see what's going on. How excited are the fan bases? Have they started arriving yet? For this game?
Louisville fans love Atlanta. They won a national basketball championship here in the Final Four. And there's a large alumni base here of Louisville fans living in Metro Atlanta. And then Georgia Tech, obviously, they love Bobby Dodd Stadium, but they get a chance to come over to Mercedes Benz, little unique experience for them. We're going to start celebrating at 2:30. We'll start our tailgate town and have fans outside, all kind of sponsor activation, games, a lot of activities out there. And then people can watch their teams actually get off the bus and at 5:15 and 5:20 walk into the stadium through their fans and their band and cheerleaders at Home Depot backyard. And then we'll tee it up at 7:36 and kick it off.
Awesome. Last thing is this. We know that I think we had the next 4 years we got the game scheduled out for the kickoff. But what goes into that? I'm gonna be the nosy guy now. I need because to pick the teams, to put the feelers out there. What goes into getting these great games every year? Because you don't miss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's always a great game.
It's difficult. Sometimes you get lucky, like last year, and have Georgia, Oregon, number 3 and number 10 in the country. Next year we'll have Georgia, Clemson.
Yeah,
which will be a blockbuster game. Could be 2 top 5 teams playing next year. But it's a lot of conversations with ADs and coaches. Some coaches don't want to play other coaches. Some ADs financially, it doesn't make sense. They don't want to move a home game. So you just have a lot of talks, a lot of conversation, a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings to see who's interested. And then, try and work the numbers to make sure it works financially for them. Hopefully, at the time, you get people that are healthy. You get people that have stayed there. We've had Oregon. I mean, ironically enough, in 2019, I'm talking to Mario Cristobal about Oregon coming to play Georgia.
Right.
And he says, "Yeah, I love Kirby. I coached with Kirby at Alabama with Nick Saban. I'd love to compete against Kirby, and so we'll do it." So I get to the AD, we do the financial deal, and winds up Mario takes the job at Miami in 2020 and 21, and winds up Dan Lanning is the coach who comes from Georgia, recruited a lot of those kids.
Right.
He's the defensive coordinator for the national championship. He winds up being the head coach to come play against Georgia in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game in his first game of his career. So, it's kind of a Rubik's Cube, but I enjoy the challenge of putting things together. And as you mentioned, we're one of the few cities that have been able to keep this consistently through since 2008. Dallas followed us, but they haven't had a game in 3 years. Orlando has a game this year, but hadn't had a game in the last 2 years. We've kind of changed the face of college football scheduling on the front side of the season, because now you've got Ohio State playing Notre Dame last year. You have Texas playing Alabama in week 2. When we started this thing, no one played each other. The viewership was down.
Right.
Attendance was down. And now, we've been a big benefactor for the CFP selection committee as well, because I go back to 2017 when we opened Mercedes Benz Stadium with Alabama number 1 and Florida State number 3. Alabama wins that game, does not win the SEC championship, but gets in at number 4 because the CFP selection committee looked at their big win against Florida State, who had a good year the rest of the year. And that propelled them into the playoff, and they wound up winning the national championship that year. So these games matter in a big way. And then this game, obviously being a conference game as well.
And even the Georgia-Oregon game, everybody, even though the Oregon didn't have a great game that game, they played a great season and had a chance to get into the CFP because of that Georgia
beat
game.
Utah, they'd have been in the championship, right? So,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's a great point, Emmanuel. Even if you lose this game, if you have a good season the rest of the year, and that team that beats you, if they have a good season, that only helps your ratings with the CFP selection committee. So we've seen that happen, in the past. So it's been very influential with the CFP.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gary. I'm excited.
Sure.
I will be covering it. I'm
good.
doing some things.
We'll be looking forward to hosting you and having you at Mercedes Benz Stadium.
Yeah, for the people out there, because when this air, give them one reason you need to be watching, attending. Tell them, give them hyped up for this game, Gary.
Yeah, hey, people haven't seen college football for 9 months, so this is the time. It's time to go. Let's go. It's a conference game. First-year coaches, get behind your school, get behind your coach, and let's have a great season, everybody. And we'll see you at the end of the year with the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm already, ready to go. Y'all be ready to go. We thank Gary again, CEO of the Peach Bowl. I'm sorry, make sure the Peach Bowl Incorporated, which is over AFLAC Kickoff Game. Make sure this Friday night game. That's awesome at Mercedes Benz. Thank you again, Gary. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Take care.
Have a great one.
All right, you too.